Here are the headlines for the day. The former Minneapolis police officer who kneeled on George Floyd's neck will be tried alone. Minnesota Judge Peter Cahill has ruled Derek Chauvin will be tried separately from the other officers because of the ongoing pandemic. Now, those other officers, there are three of them, Thomas Kane, J. Alexander Kung, and Tu Thao. They will be tried together starting on August 23rd. They are charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. According to Hennepin County court documents, the physical limitations of the county's largest courtroom in Minneapolis make it impossible to comply with COVID-19 physical restrictions in a joint trial involving all four defendants beginning March 8th. Chauvin will be tried on charges of second-degree unintentional murder and second-degree manslaughter in Floyd's May 25th death. As you know, Floyd's death was caught on video and became part of a rallying cry against racism and police brutality around the country. According to the ruling, jury selection in Chauvin's trial will take place March 8th through the 26th. Opening statements are set to begin no earlier than March 26th. One, it's interesting how COVID-19 affected things here. This also, it takes us back to that video, right? And it reminds you of, it's just another reminder of the differences between how police interact with some people compared to some others. Because what we have here, this video that was all over an alleged fake $20 bill. And compare that to what we saw last week, right? And even what we saw yesterday. It was reported that reporters watched Republican lawmaker after lawmaker setting off the new metal detectors outside the Capitol. Those are there for all of their protection.
Right.
They were walking through, setting them out, and refusing to obey officers' orders. One of them didn't allow their bag to be searched. Another one is being accused of physically pushing past an officer that the reporter said was left almost in tears. And another one admitted to being armed last week during the riot. So all completely breaking the law and also interacting in a, disobedient order with police officers. And we didn't hear of any arrests, right, yesterday.
That's so true. A couple of things when I think about this case is like, it's not happening soon enough, for one. We can't get to justice soon enough. Some people were talking about having all the officers in court at the same time. I like the idea of it just being focused in those 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That pretty much changed the world.
Well, I agree with you, Romeo. So I agree, and then I want to add one more piece. So Chauvin, he absolutely should go down harder because he was the aggressor. He had his knee on George Floyd's neck.
Yes.
But the other officers, we cannot take it light on them either because at any point in time in those 8 minutes, they could have said, hey, stop. Hey, stop. They could have done something. But also, I feel like it's every man for himself right now. I feel like those other three officers, they're kind of like, we want to distance ourselves because they know that they were not the ones that had their knee on his neck. So they're kind of like, let's go in separately so we don't go down drowned with Chauvin. I feel like that's what, their lawyers are probably instructing them to do right now.
I'm going to make a prediction. The three of them get off. They're acquitted. Chauvin, he gets convicted of manslaughter and not the second-degree murder charge. And then his lawyer uses the fact that the trials were separated as part of part of the appeals process. That's my prediction.
We gotta wait and see.
So we shall see. Anyways, House lawmakers today impeached Donald Trump for his role in last week's deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol, capping an extraordinary week of violence, apprehension, and partisan brawling in Congress, just as Washington cranks up security in preparation for Joe Biden's inauguration just a week away. The 232 to 197 vote was historic. It made Trump the first president in the country's history to be impeached twice. And unlike the first debate, this time the president's Democratic critics had support across the aisle. 10 Republicans joined every voting Democrat to approve the single impeachment article, which accuses Trump of inciting violence against the same federal government he leads. The impeachment vote will lead to a trial in the Senate, though the timing and the outcome in the upper chamber are unclear. Now, I really want to say which senators or which Republicans said that they would vote for impeachment.
The 10, right?
Yeah, the 10. I have to, just because of their bravery for, splitting with
bravery. Good word. They are brave.
Their party. So
is that fair? That if this is just their basic job?
No. Well, then, listen, the bar's low. Okay,
Brooke,
we've established that the bar is completely low.
No, I can respect that.
So let's just
people are giving them like a round of applause right now for being brave.
Let's shout them out. So Representatives Liz Cheney of Wyoming, the party's number 3 leader in the House, Jamie Herrera Butler of Washington, John Katko of New York, Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, Fred Upton of Michigan, Dan Newhouse of Washington, Peter Meijer of Michigan, Anthony Gonzalez of Ohio, David Valadao of California, California, and Tom Rice of South Carolina. So I really wanted to just say their names out loud because they split with their party, because you still have Republicans that are acting like Trump did nothing wrong, and they just won't admit it.
It's good that you gave him some love, but this is going to carry over into their real life. We saw the video, I think, with Lindsey Graham in the airport, where they would call him a traitor. So these people have some things come from them, unfortunately, when they're outside of the Capitol, right? But I have people hit me up all the time and say, why do we get so excited about him being impeached when he's still in charge?
Right. Yeah. People are, it's like, what's the big deal? But the big deal is that, this is supposed to be their job. They're supposed to hold the president accountable. And you don't often, first of all, nobody wants to get to this point, right, where one side just impeaches the other side, whoever has control, because nobody wants that to happen to them. So you have to get to the point to where they feel like they have the public backing them, and the fact that they're at the point of no return. And this Congress feels like they've gotten there twice. 237 to 197, that is the most bipartisan impeachment in history. I also, I watched all of this go down on C-SPAN, really lame morning, but I just want to say that you could see a big difference in how Republicans watching the debate there were reacting and kind of making comments and loud, almost like booing, when black women were speaking. It was an actual massive difference in the type of, I guess you could call it like jeering. What Vox's Aaron Rupert called it jeering. Yeah. But you could see that, and that was fascinating.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in one more piece here too. Everyone on Twitter right now is talking about a tweet that Donald Trump said in 2014, where he was talking about Barack Obama at the time, and he said, "Are you allowed to impeach a president for gross incompetence?" So everyone is like bringing that, retweeting that, and like kind of
that didn't age well.
Yeah, it didn't, exactly. That didn't age well, and using it against him. And also hashtag impeachment day is the #1 trending topic right now on Twitter. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, now moving forward, former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, his health director, and other ex-officials have been told they're being charged after a new investigation of the Flint water scandal, which devastated the majority black city with lead-contaminated water and was blamed for a deadly outbreak of Legionnaire's disease. The Associated Press has learned 2 people with knowledge of the planned prosecution told the AP on Tuesday that the Attorney General's office has informed defense lawyers about indictments in Flint and told them to expect initial court appearances soon. They spoke to the AP on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. The Flint water disaster became a national symbol of governmental mismanagement, with residents lining up for bottled water and parents fearing that their child could suffer permanent harm because lead can damage the brain and nervous system and cause learning and behavioral problems. The crisis was highlighted as an example of environmental injustice and racism. Separately, the state, Flint, a hospital, and engineering firms have agreed to a $641 million settlement with residents over the water crisis, with $600 million coming from Michigan. A judge is considering whether to grant preliminary approval or not.
The Michigan State Police have increased the visible security presence at the state capitol in Lansing after deadly riots in Washington, D.C., and the warning that last week's riots could be followed by armed protests at state capitol buildings across the country. A spokesperson for the Michigan State Police says law enforcement officials are aware of demonstrations organized by online groups for January 17th. That's 3 days before President-elect Joe Biden will be inaugurated. The FBI reportedly distributed a memo to law enforcement agencies across the U.S. warning armed protests are being planned at state capitals, and at least one group is calling for storming government buildings if President Donald Trump is removed from office before January 20th. The Michigan Capitol Commission banned open carry of firearms inside the Capitol Monday, reversing its stance after last week's riots in D.C. Now, Michigan's Capitol was closed due to a bomb threat just a day after those riots in our nation's capital.
Well, joining us now to discuss the latest developments of the Flint water crisis and the threat to Michigan State Capitol is Michigan Representative Cynthia A. Johnson. Welcome back to the Black Report, Representative Johnson, and thank you for joining on our prayer before the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start with Flint. What were your thoughts when you heard that former Governor Snyder and others will be indicted?
About time.
I like that.
Okay, do we want to know?
I love it, short and sweet.
Exactly. Listen, I was
point.
ready for something else. I'm like, well, I guess I'll hop on in and ask my question. We want to know here, do you think that individuals being indicted are the only ones to blame, or are there others?
I'm very happy to see that we have a top official, a white man, let's be real clear, who is allegedly responsible for hundreds of people, thousands of people in Flint being affected. And I don't know how many more people there are, but I'm happy to know that at least the top dog is going to be at least charged. And I'm sure there's more people, but like we always say, he's the captain, right? He's got to go down with the ship. He's got to take the responsibility. We can't continue to lay blame on people who work underneath him. You take responsibility, and that's as it should be. So I'm not going to speculate how many more people should be indicted, should be charged. I know that they have the right one right now.
All right, let's move on to the warning of more violent protest as a state lawmaker. You know, what are your concerns about the future and really possibility of more rioting?
Are you talking about in Washington
all
or
over the place?
In Michigan?
In Michigan, state capitals.
All over. Let me just say this, that this is awful, but at the same time, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that finally, what we have been telling the world, we being Black people, have told the world that we are not your enemy. I think about Black men who get on the elevator and white women clutch their purses. Mm-hmm. I think about all those things. And then we see a January 6, 2017, or 2021. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of the images that I've seen when there has been other white people in different periods of time who had picnics, and they would hang Black people, mostly men, and their families would watch while white men would attack and kill Black people. In this situation with regard to Washington, it was very similar. This time, the mob, I don't even know if they even realized what they were doing. I don't know if they just went along just to go along, if they really know the real history of what they really are actually doing, which is to take away the vote from Black people. To also, it goes back to the Civil War. They want, in the Civil War period, that purpose was to keep slaves. And I think that there is a lot of white people, and we just really need to have the real honest talk. There's so many white people who are afraid that what has happened to Black people, that we'll do the same thing to them. But that's not who we are. So do I think that there's going to be more unrest? I don't know what another human being will do. I just pray that there will be legislators who will come out against this, including those 18 representatives who are colleagues of mine, who signed on to turning over an election. So if they come out against this, and I'm imploring all of them to come out, take a stand. You have no reason to be afraid of Black people.
That is so true.
Not at all.
That is so true. We have Michigan Representative Cynthia Johnson joining us right now. Now, back in May, a largely white militia took over the state capitol with guns and threats. Was anyone arrested? And what does that say to you as a Black woman?
Not to my knowledge. And I believe that was, not to my knowledge, I believe that was April 30th. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that you've asked the question.
Okay.
About time somebody asked the question. Was anybody arrested? I don't remember anybody being arrested. I remember being inside of the chamber on the floor, being scared, not knowing what to do. I remember my colleagues not wondering if they should find a closet, if they should go underneath their desks. Wow. If that was Black people, it would have been cut off at the knees. And let me just say for the record that I had mentioned to a non-Black colleague, well, maybe I should call on my friends to come down here. Oh, Cynthia, don't do that. Don't do that. Why? Is it because if Black people did the same things that these I can't even call them people, these thugs. If Black people did the same thing that these thugs did, there would be bodies all over the whole country.
Yeah, that's true.
Can I ask you if I can interrupt you for a second? And thank you so much. You've been making so many great points. It's an honor to have you here. But have you been briefed on any possible precautions that you and any other lawmakers need to take in light of the latest FBI warnings on state Capitol buildings?
Not to my, no, we have not. I understand that they're working on some briefings to brief us, but I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
And that too is a shame.
It's been reported that you have received death threats. Can you speak to us about that? And has the National Guard or extra security been called to protect you at the state capitol?
Let me just say this. I have received thousands of death threats. My staff had been inundated with I'm sure that it's been well more than 10,000 threats. Some of them were, like the calling names, the N word, B word. Oh, a lot of them love the C word, C-U blank T. Oh, they love that word. But I've received many death threats. The FBI is working on one case, and I was told today that there is some thug in California who did some kind of YouTube thing. And it was about me, but it has quickly been snatched off. But the FBI person told me, she says, Rep, I really don't want you to see it. I said, is it really that bad? Yeah, it's pretty bad. And then we have the other case where the guy on January 7th made the bomb threat to the Capitol, only for me to get a phone call that night or a text that night asking me to call the Attorney General immediately, because the guy who made the bomb threat on the Michigan Capitol, they connected the phone numbers and realized that he was a guy who made a death threat to my family and me on December 12th, 2020. Why am I saying that? Because for over 3 weeks, nothing was done on the case regarding this guy who made threats to me. Now, the Capitol Police and the Michigan State Police, they had his full name, full phone number, full address, knew exactly where he lived. The difference is that I'm a Black woman. Let's go back to 2002. There was another legislator, happened to be a white man. There was a threat made against him. Michigan State Police immediately went out to Garden City and told the guy, knock it off. What's the difference? So I don't have any control over what these people do, but I'll tell you this, be it legislators or the police or people who we just simply work with, people who we're supposed to trust, I can't wait for them to really protect me what I will do is call them out every single time. I will not bury anything. You see, all of this, what is going on, it reminds me a whole lot about the threats that I've received. It reminds me so much of domestic violence. You know, your abuser is going to try and shut you up. They'll knock you down, tell you that you were the person who caused it, so that you can shut up. Being quiet in 2021 is not an option.
I love that.
Amen.
You know what? I have a question before you go, because you're right. And I remember last week, especially when I saw your name, we were going to interview you. I was really excited because I think it was last month, you had made a video, right, talking directly to Trump supporters. And then a lot of right-wingers.
No, I did not.
No?
Oh, okay, go on. I really wasn't talking directly. Well, I was talking to two groups of people.
Well, and the right-wingers kind of took your words out of context, and it went viral. They made a big deal out of it. But then a month later, we saw what happened at the U.S. Capitol. And I think you were using strong words, but I wanted to ask you about that. You know, what did you think about that? What did you think about your meaning behind making the video, the message? And then what did you think about people intentionally twisting your words?
This is not new stuff that happened to Cynthia A. Johnson. It happens every single day. We have many people who are in prison right now, not because of something that they did necessarily, but because they didn't have the monies to bail themselves out. They didn't have the money for the right attorneys, and because they were Black. Black people, and I know I'm talking to the choir. I hope that there's some white brothers and sisters who are really listening to this, because the messages of double standard is real.
Yeah, it is.
White privilege. Y'all know that's real. Stop playing. If you're really honest with yourself, you know that what happened with Cynthia A. Johnson is nothing but a manifestation of blaming the victim. And white people have done that, not all, but powerful white men have done that. These folks have duped us. It's not just Black people who have been misused. Let me tell you something. When I did that video, that 3-minute video that they made out of 30 seconds, claiming that I was running after the Trumpsters and blah, 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 it took it totally out of context. Let me tell you something. If I was a white person and I saw that doctored video, I'd be mad too. But let me just tell you something, my white brothers and sisters. I don't blame you for being mad, but your anger is misdirected. Your anger should be, and do your research. Not that fake stuff. Do the real work of finding out about really what was the Civil War about. It was about enslaving people, making sure to keep slaves so that white people could get free labor. That's what that was about.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I'm telling you, my white brothers and sisters, be mad at those people who look you directly in the face and lie to you, who have lied to you for years about who this boogeyman of Black people. Well, I hope now, since June 6, 2021, you really see who the demonic monsters really are.
Representative Cynthia Johnson. Yeah. Yeah,
what a way to end the interview, you know?
Man, that is so powerful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Cynthia. Please be safe and keep us posted on what's going on. We'll talk to you soon, okay? All right.
You're welcome back anytime. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Everyone seems to be on fire about that interview. Oprah Gates on our YouTube. I just went right for it. Our YouTube soulmates are saying they hate us Black people because they fear us. They know how awesome we are, and they're afraid that we will realize our power and reunite. I love that. Sharisa Hayes says, are they still putting up the 6-foot fence to guard our Capitol building and the people? That would have been a great question we could have asked. And then Casey Bisbal says, share this on Twitter because because the news is so good. You guys on YouTube have so many good comments. I'll make sure that I just keep on shouting you guys out all show long because we are live now. Yes.